WASSCE History TV, just like.
Hi there. I welcome you once again to our WASSCE History TV. And before we begin with today's discussion, I would urge you to subscribe to the channel, share to your friends in other schools as well. Today we are going to look at the NLC, the National Liberation Council, from 1966 to 1969. And we will look at the problems that the NLC faced. Okay. And then we also look at how the NLC managed to solve the economic problems that they came to inherit from the CPP government, or the Nkrumah government. We can recall in our previous discussion the reasons for the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And if you have not watched that video or that lesson, I have included the link in the description, so you can click on the RPK under this description and then go in there and watch before you come to watch this video. If not, you will find it difficult to understand. And so the major problems faced by the NLM, and then we also look at how these problems were solved. So let's take a look at our lesson objectives for today. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to state the members of the National Liberation Council. So the members of the National Liberation Council, or the NLC. So which members, or who were the members of the NLC? And again, you're supposed to state the problems the NLC faced upon assumption of office in 1966. So you state the problems the NLC faced upon their assumption of office in 1966. And then you should also be able to outline the measures taken by the NLC to solve the problems that they came to meet. And don't forget that we might not be able to finish all of that. So we will do with the problems, and then in our next video, we will look at the solutions. So let's look at the introduction. The NLC was the first military regime formed in Ghana in 1966 after the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah. It was headed by J.A. Ankara. He was then the chief of defense staff. And so after Kutuka and the rest had overthrown Nkrumah, Ankara was made the chairman of the NLC. And so on 26, they announced their members. But first of them, we had J.W.K. Harley. He was the commissioner of police. There was B.A. Yakubu, who was the deputy commissioner. And then we also had A.K. Deku, who was also the head of Ghana's police criminal investigation department. That's the CID. And we also have Lieutenant Colonel E.K. Kotuka, who was killed later on. And then we also have Captain A.A. Afrifa. So these were the members of the NLC. And when you look on your right on the image, you have seen the members, of course, sitting there. Their names have been inscribed down there. And this image was gotten from the Daily Graphic in 1966. And so they formed the members of the NLC. So when you are asked anywhere to mention or state any or list any three members of the NLC, you should be able to do that. So those are the names down there, and those are the people in there. And Ankara, J. Ankara is the man in the middle over there. Good. So let's move on. So the NLC was a caretaker government. Caretaker government in the sense that they were not coming in to stay in office. they only came in to do some changes because Nkrumah was not allowing election to take place. Political parties had been banned, and so caretaker government here means that the NLC did not come to stay in office for long. They only came to change the previous government so that they can allow for smooth transition to a democratic rule. So the NLC announced on 26th that they were not there to stay in office. That was 26 February 1966. That they were not in office to actually stay for long, but they were only there as a caretaker government. And so that is what they mean by a caretaker government. Okay? And so when you're asked anywhere, I hope you will be able to explain the caretaker government. Let's then take a look at the problems that the NLC faced upon assumption of office in 1966. But before that, let me change this. Good. So let's begin with the first problem. So the first problem that the NLC faced was the problem of what to do with the ex-CPP activists and also ministers and then the members of parliament of whom were found to have acquired wealth illegally. All right, illegally. So what happened was that after the coup, it was found out that some of the CPP ministers and MPs, had used dubious means and corrupt ways to acquire wealth, and so the NLC faced a problem as to what to do with these people, whether to imprison them or to, take them somewhere. And so the other one was that there were also food shortages, unemployment, corruption, immorality, nepotism, and indiscipline in the country. Food shortages. Basic items like milk and coal were all not available, and most of these problems are still here with us. The next one was that there was a high budget deficit in 1965. The country had run out of money and therefore could not finance its budget. And so there was a budget deficit, how to get money to make up for that. Let's go to the next one. They also had to deal with a counter-led coup, which was led by Lieutenant S.B. Arthur and Yeboah in 1967. And this resulted in the death of General E.K. Ekutuka at the place where we have the Accra International Airport, where his name was named after that because that is where he was killed. So as a military government who came to overthrow another government, there were other insurgents, other military coups other people also tried to overthrow the Ankara regime or the NLC, but that was a failed coup. And so SB Atta and Yeboah were killed by the military tribunal. They were killed after their coup failed, but Kutuka at the long run died in that coup. So that became also a problem for the NLC to face. Now, the next one was that the NLC had to deal with how to legitimize its rule. The government had to win the people's confidence. The people did not vote for the NLC or the National Liberation Council to come into office. And so there was a problem as to how the NLC can be able to win the confidence of the people, win the vote of the people, as in the people accepting them as their government until they give way for a new party or election to take place. So they had that problem as to how to deal with legitimacy, how to win the people's confidence, and that. And so they were not a democratic elected government, and so that became really a problem for them to of course legitimize their power. So let's take a look at more of the problems that the NLC faced upon their assumption of office in 1966. So the government also had to restore the various freedoms Ghanaians lost during the CPP and some of these, of course, freedoms were, of course, political associations, free press, freedom of speech, and other things. And so, under Nkrumah, we realized that the introduction of the one-party system and other things infringed on the right for political association, free press. Some press, were actually banned, and so there was a problem as to how to bring all these things back. Also, the government also had to guarantee the institution of chieftaincy and the reinstatement of chiefs who were distilled or enslaved for political reasons. In Nkrumah, some chiefs proved to be ethnic inclined. They instead of them to forge unity, some of them tried to separate their people from joining the country at large. And so Nkrumah felt that, and more so, some political reasons, some of course were also formed based on political of course, political. But now the next one was that the NLC faced the problem of false recognition of J. Ankara, who was then the chairman, for corrupt charges and over ambition. J. Ankara had to be forced to resign because they coming in to deal with corruption, and then he himself also being found to be corrupt. So J. Ankara was forced to also resign by his people, and that tainted the image of the NLC. And you have seen us over there in the news graphic, in the picture there on your right hand side. J. Ankara resigns, and that brought about some kind of course, the credibility of the image. Of course, the credibility of the military was at stake. Again, there was a problem of restoring good relations with some African and Western countries like Togo, Nigeria, Britain, and USA. And so Nkrumah, in pursuant of his foreign policies, stepped on the toes of some of these African and European countries. And normally you would hear him, referring to Europe as imperialist, neo-colonialist people, and all these derogatory remarks by Nkrumah brought about enmity between him and other countries. And so the NLC faced the problem as to how to restore that good relationships that the country of course had with these countries. So that was a major task of the NLC. Let's go to the next one. The NLC faced the problem of how to prepare the country towards constitutional rule. That was the Second Republic, because we have seen that the First Republic had been overthrown by the NLC. And so we have already indicated that the NLC was a caretaker government. And so a caretaker government, which then means that it was just to prepare the ground for a next election to take place. And so the NLC being a caretaker government, there was a problem as to how to steer the country into a constitutional rule, and that is the Second Republic. And so these and many more were some of the problems that the NLC came to inherit from the Nkrumah government. And so they tried their best to solve some of these problems. And so in our next video, we will look at the measures that the NLC took, the measures taken by the NLC to solve the various problems that they had come to inherit, and how they managed to steer, of course, the country to a constitutional rule. So bear with me, we will end here for today, and it's my hope that you watch the next video on the measures taken by the NLC to restore the country back into constitutional rule. Let's meet some other time, and subscribe to the channel and recommend it to your friends as well. We will meet some other time. Have a nice day. All right, bye bye.